Hey, this is Eternal King here. I want to bring you another video today. A quick little talk on how to kind of level up your play style, kind of get better at the game if you're running certain kinds of decks. So the subject of today's video is committing to your plays. So I'll give you an example. Elder Dragon is very, very popular right now. So if you're running something like an elusives list, which again is not a competitive meta deck, it used to be something like, deck number 60 on the meta list, but I like it because, again, I like to play decks that are somewhere on the competitive scale, but very, very low on the totem pole. And I also like decks that are very, they're not unga bunga. There is some thought process involved. The way that you choose your burst buffs with Blessing of Targon, battle bonds, the way that you line up your elusives into a board clear. There's a lot of thought process involved in that. Now, a good player will run decks with pings. They will run decks with avalanches. They will have responsive plays to you trying to build out your wombo combo with your elusives and your big swings. However, a bad player will not. And that's kind of where they'll just try to overpower you with pure beef. They'll try to overpower you with pure standard high masters play, which is basically just playing on curve threats, creating a giant board presence, and then winning that way. It's very clear, it's very linear the way that they play. And so the best way to deal with that is the swim method and the way that he used to play, which is high play commitment. Kind of knowing the exact turn that you have to commit to a play to win, and never passing priority to the opponent when that happens. So I'll give you an example again, playing against Elder Dragon. I had played out, I had I had a big Teemo, which the opponent did the right thing and removed the elusive keyword from the big Teemo. It was like a 10 damage Teemo or something hilarious. And then I had an Esmus, and opponent passed priority to me. I developed Horazi, and I had enough burn in hand for exactly 5 damage. So as soon as Horazi hit, and the opponent passed priority to me, there would have been a temptation to play something else. I had a Teemo in hand. I could have, committed to the board more, given the opponent that free avalanche. I did not do that. I knew I needed the spell shield on the Horazi to give my elusive spell shield and swing for enough damage to win. But there was one more part of that game that I played exceptionally well, beyond just playing around avalanches and board clears and things like that, by buffing them out of range, buffing the creatures out of range for my bonus challenge attempts, just constantly denying them value on their control attempts. So beyond that, it was playing the Mystic Shot and get excited during the combat phase, which is kind of like an MTG trick, which is, knowing that the opponent has access to things like Tavern Keepers. The opponent has access to things like even just the Elder Dragon heal effect, which is you just play a creature and you get a free heal off of it. Everything becomes a Tavern Keeper, in the Elder Dragon deck. So in that instance, playing the Get Excited, playing the Mystic Shot during the combat phase, when I already had lethal on the swing, with Spell Shield, basically put the opponent on, like, do you have double Frostbite or do you want to lose the game? And the opponent did not have double Frostbite. He might have had one Frostbite, they probably had one Avalanche, and then they had their big creature plays. And the other thing was, of course, buffing my elusives out of range of volilbear, being very cognizant of the 4 damage ping, range. So he played a volilbear into me. He played all his big beef. He played double turtle. He had so much damage on board, and he had all these things, and it didn't matter because, again, I'm playing Eternal Big Brain and he's playing Standard Small Brain. And in that situation, I was able to win that game, even with, even though that matchup probably isn't great for me. In a lot of ways, they have a lot of tools. They have their Frostbites, they have their Avalanches, they have their challenging unit for 3 mana, which, again, I talked a lot about how Freljord only became good after this unit was released. Like, when this guy first came out, the 3 mana Explorer, Scholarly Pioneer, like, I went on and on about, like, how Scholarly Pioneer, more so than all the new ramp tools and all the new creatures, Scholarly Pioneer is what saved Freljord as a region. He, like, single-handedly brought this region up to, like, 51% in a ramp shell, 52% just by himself, by being such a good card. Being able to deny that elusive value, also challenge those cheap elusives, it's so strong. So strong, and setting up for an avalanche potentially, and it's just so much value. So again, like, his deck was perfectly tacked into mine. Like, there's no reason why he should have lost. But he did lose, because I played it perfectly, because I didn't make a single mistake. And I committed to the win. And that was the big swim play there. Like that was it was the Harazi onto the Esmus, not passing priority a second time, and also committing the burn during the attack phase. That's what won the game. Because again, he had access to so much healings. You know, he just thought he was just going to be like, oh, okay, well, I'll eat the swing, and then I'll just heal back up again. Because that's what that deck does, Elder Dragon deck. And it's like, no, 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 no. I'm not going to pass priority back to you. You're going to eat the 7 damage off of the Harazi, and then you're going to eat the 5 damage off the Get Excited and the Mystic Shot. And you're going to eat it all at once. And you can either answer that play with, you know, fast speed or burst speed healing, or you can answer that play with a double frostbite, or you can lose, and then the opponent lost. Now, just not talking about the games that I played exceptionally well, I have games that I played badly. You know, I was playing into a Thralls player, and I thought the way that he built his deck was very good. I believe that triple avalanche, triple blighted ravine is the way to run a Freljord sort of, you know, again, it's kind of like landmark ramp, if you want to call it that. You're speeding up the landmarks to get Thralls with Lysandra. I think that opponent played that game exceptionally well. And that's the thing is, like, he probably was a lower ranked player. He was probably considered to be worse than, you know, the guy that's been grinding out Elder Dragon on standard ladder nonstop. So the Lysandra player was probably worse than the standard player, you know, empirically speaking. But the thing is, I lost to the Lysandra player with the triple avalanche and the triple blighted ravine because he's just playing, you know, his deck and running his deck in such a way that I would recommend personally, but nobody does. Like, nobody does that. No one hard commits to the triple avalanche, triple blighted ravine. No one does that. And so when the opponent did that, I developed into it, just, you know, off of it's my normal thing. I develop into most high-ranked players that face off against me because they think they have something to prove. And I commit into them because, again, they have discarded pings. They have been trained in the standard playstyle mentality where they don't run pings, they don't hard commit to board clears. Maybe there's a couple avalanches, but that's about it, you know. But no, this opponent, you know, who was probably lower ranks, hard committed in the Thralls deck, played it very well. Triple avalanche, triple blighted ravine absolutely blew me out because I just did not have confidence. I didn't respect him, essentially. I had lethal on an open swing and I didn't take it. I just developed into it with the Harazi for fun. And I wanted to see if the opponent was teching properly, playing the game properly. I was playing that, you know, eternal mindset and that eternal play style. And he was. And he won that game and he deserved to win that game because I did not respect him. And that's kind of what this video is about, is that, you know, yes, on my end, when I'm playing a deck like this, you need to know how to commit to plays. That's good. And that includes developing into certain kinds of decks that you do not respect. And it involves, you know, committing burn on attack phases and not passing priority and things like that. That's how you commit into a certain deck. Committing the burst spells onto your elusives to buff them out of range of whatever removal the opponent has, because again, you know their deck. They can either hit you for 2 off an avalanche, they can challenge for 2 off the pioneer, or they can play volilbear and then, you know, hit everything for 4 essentially. And that's the damage break. And if you can buff your elusives past that range and commit to that, they're gonna have a much harder time playing against you because you're just all in. You just know what their deck does. You're all in. The Lysandra deck, I didn't know what he was running. I didn't know that he was on triple blighted, triple avalanche, but it really screwed me up because, again, I don't see blighted that often in Eternal. I don't see blighted ravine that often in Eternal. It's an amazing card. Everyone should run it as a triple. Everyone should run, you know, triple avalanche if they're running, you know, a slower Freljord style of deck. But I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see pings. I don't see fast speed spells. I don't see strong, normal LOR play like the Lysandra player was doing. What I do see is Unga Bunga standard, right? I see the Lurk. You know, Lurk's a bad matchup into this deck because, again, every single unit it does insane damage, and they can high roll as well. So, again, Lurk's a bad matchup for this deck. But most aggro matchups are favored for you. Most mid-range matchups are favored for you. Most ramp matchups are favored for you simply because they are built with that standard mentality of Unga Bunga. I'm just going to play stuff and then and then you have to deal with it, right? But typically speaking, Eternal decks are better. Having that fast speed flexibility, and I am on the 1 get excited because, again, having 2 is so clunky. I would rather have more lodestones 100% of the time. The 2 get excited is so clunky, but I run the 3 mystic shots, 1 get excited. That gives me about a range of 5 damage on the play, plus the elusive damage. So that's plenty. It's all I need because, again, I'm a stronger player. I don't need that much burn. I'd rather have the equipment. 100% of the time. and just reliably draw it, and also even have extras for Harazi potentially on 8. So I find that better. But this is a very good deck. And again, shout outs to the Lysandra player for running triple blighted, triple avalanche. You know, there was one night when I was running into like Make It Rain, and someone was just running Gangplank with Make It Rain, and I was just got absolutely blown out because again, like people don't run these cards. People don't play LOR the way they used to, right? Back during Rising Tides, it was all about, you know, Mystic Shot, the opponent's big play, ping the things that need pinging, control, you know, a bit of a tug of war, right? A bit of a give and take. Ping the things you don't like, remove certain key components from the opponent's play style. That's how LOR gets played. Now in Standard, it really is just overwhelming board presence 100% of the time, and that's how the game gets played. And Elder Dragon kind of, you know, I respect Elder Dragon for what he does, but that's like kind of the epitome is just like every single deck is either aggro or, you know, mid-range beater shells or, you know, a ramp and beater shell. Like everything in Standard is just beat, beat, beat. You know, this deck is mostly spells. I think the Elites Eternal Dragon deck, which I will, you know, I've showed you in my last video, it runs one spell. The Elder Dragon Elite deck in Standard runs one spell. 3 copies of one spell, and that's it. The rest is just creatures. And like that's Standard in a nutshell. That's how that, you know, that's how that format works. But Eternal is always going to be my home. I love Eternal. I'll never stop playing Eternal because again, this is so much more dynamic, so much more interesting, right? Like the opponent open swings into you, you eat the open swing, you heal up off of Sparkle Fly, you put them in a difficult spot, you buff your creatures out of range with their removal tools, you commit the burn on the swing. Like there's just so many decisions. You Mystic Shot, really problematic cards. Like there's so many decisions happening at all times in an Eternal deck that makes it so fun. Like there's so much, like do you commit, do you not commit, do you open swing, do you not open swing? In Standard it's always open swing. In Eternal sometimes you commit. And committing is exceptionally important in the Eternal format, and knowing when to commit, and sometimes when not to commit, because the opponent, you know, the opponent's actually playing a real deck with cards, and then all of a sudden you're like, what is happening? Because you're just so confused by the opponent playing old school LOR and getting blown out by it. Which is again what I recommend. You know, triple blighted, triple avalanche, smart players playing the game intelligently. But this is Eternal King signing out, just talking a little bit about committing to your plays, how important that is in an Eternal format, and how that will get you so much farther into the game. Unless you're running Nora, and then Nora's 0 commitment, and that's another way of kind of dealing with things. But for the most part, if you're playing a deck like this, you have to know how to commit. But yeah, this is Eternal King signing out.